Hi friends, you're here with me, Jen the Taxidermy Witch, and we are back from my 9 days of being gone, and I'm getting into fairy stuff because I want to change my old wooden handmade dollhouse into an indoor fairy shrine. And so, I've gotten my first book on the Fae called Faery Craft by Emily Carding, Weaving Connections with the Enchanted Realm. And so, I'm reading to you the whole of chapter 4 with a few sentences taken out. I've highlighted everything I want to talk about, and I want to get through the whole of chapter 4 within 25 minutes. So let's see if I can do it. Okay, so it starts on page 113, if I don't know if you're following along. And it gives you a brief of what's going to happen in this chapter. First it talks about shrines, and I did read a paragraph or two in my last video about this, but we're going to get through it all, and I'm excited about that. So, shrines, basically, a shrine becomes a focal point for your interactions with the fairy. And through regular use and leaving regular offerings, it will become a meeting point between both worlds. And the fairy beings and elemental spirits will be attracted to it. So, the energy is going to welcome from this realm to the next. And what I'm saying by that is everything else I have in here, all of this taxidermy, all of the spirits, the bones that are in this room, are also that's going to draw more out of them and more communication with them. Okay, so also you want to make sure that you keep it as far away from any Wi-Fi or even just electrical items, plug-ins, plugged-in things. Now, slowly over time, I'm changing my room. I just removed the TV and the Wi-Fi router and all that out of here. I hated the noise that it made. It just made this buzzing, wah, whenever I had it on. It was loud and it was like disturbing my mental focus. And in these last 9 days and 7 days that I took off from making videos, I was without Wi-Fi that entire time, and I was watching just movies and, doing things on my phone, but I had the Wi-Fi completely off. So, I got a lot of book reading done, whatever. I realized I didn't need my TV as much as I thought I did. And I'm trying to change this whole space over. So I got rid of the TV. I have a couple lamps plugged in. I have one down here and I have one up here. I only keep this lamp on when my studio's going. And I'm slowly... My husband's at the store getting oil for all my lamps right now, so that I can still film in here with light and hopefully no plugins besides this that I can't really film without up there. So that's my hope, because I want to make this, I have my outdoor source, but this is my indoor shrine, okay? So because when those things are in here and you're trying to communicate with the fairy, it's like a static noise or crossed lines where you just can't get the communication because there's noise and it just won't be able to happen for you. That's why outside is so great, because you don't have any of those things. Hopefully. Okay, most shrines tend to build up over time around a main focal point, and that could be a statue, a painting, a photograph, something else. And be creative and let yourself be inspired. Candles, never leave them burning unattended. Statues, crystals, stones, and objects collected from nature can combine to make a beautiful sacred space. You may also choose to keep your fairy craft tools in your shrine, and they talk about that later on, I guess. Certainly if you have a space that is it is a good idea to have representations of the 4 elements in your shrine, because those elements are so important, as they rule the realm of nature and they take care of that. And so they would really appreciate that. So I'm going to have a room in the dollhouse where I have just the 4 elements. And I'm really excited about that. Okay, so certainly, right, elements. Okay, try to keep it as clean as possible, because shrines tend to get more things. Like, I'll find something thrifting and go, oh, that'll be great in my shrine. Oh, that'll be great. Okay, so over time, it might become too much. So you're going to want to refine it. You're going to want to clean it up and keep it super tidy, because spirits in general and alchemy and working with fairy and spirits, clutter is hard, and they don't like to come into something too cluttered. I just cleaned up my room, and it still obviously feels really, it doesn't feel cluttered to me, but it probably looks cluttered to you. Okay, so we talked about the shrine. Now we're going to talk about, and they have a really cool illustration in the book of this outdoor shrine. There's like a statue and a symbol painted on a rock, and some really beautiful rocks. I love rocks. Oh my gosh. When we were in Idaho, this little nursery had so many like big giant rock. All these rocks that I brought home, most of them came from the nursery. I foraged one at the river. Yeah, so they had so many things for so inexpensive. A big giant chunk of like slate for like $20. It would make a perfect outdoor working altar. I was gonna get one, but I had already spent a lot of money, so next time. So exercise, building a fairy shrine. As you've already read, there are no dictatorial rules for your shrine. Indeed, the more personal it is to you, the better. However, there are some ideas. Here are some ideas to get you started. The first consideration must be the location. Will yours be an indoor or outdoor shrine? Will you have both, like I do, or will? Outdoor shrines are preferable are preferable as good focal points for offerings, and indoor shrines are useful places to keep sacred objects that wouldn't last outdoors, as well as a focus for meditation. You should choose somewhere that will be undisturbed, easy to keep clean, and as peaceful as possible. I think I can maintain all those things. And when it's there, it's easy for me to flip around and do workings with, because I have the shut side, I didn't want it to look cluttery. So I did that. And it's beautiful on this side. So that should be a good spot where I can do that. So gather the items that you wish to form the foundation of your shrine, bearing in mind that natural materials are preferable. This is made of wood. It's not a plastic dollhouse. And it was made by hand, which is really cool. You want it to be aesthetically pleasing, and the things in it to be meaningful. Before you begin, be sure the area is clean, free from clutter. You will also need a chalice or a bowl of water from a natural source such as a spring, lake, river, or the sea. Okay. So, I just collected this water out of the Great Columbia River. And look how clean it is. I collected it 5 or 6 days ago. There's a few snails living in there. I mean, I collected it out of like a murky part. I hate to sound greedy, but I wish I had more. So this would be a great one. I was able to, the other day when it poured down rain. I know everybody says, Seattle, it rains so much. No, it doesn't. But I was able to put like a bunch of bowls out on my roof and then collect 2 full ones of these. So rainwater, those are 2 natural sources that you could use for this bowl of water that we're talking about when we're building our shrine. So yes, and some incense. Have some of that going. You may use these initially to cleanse the energy of the space. The placing of each object should be done with focus, positive intent, and significance. And if you see the way that I'm a placer. I've always been a placer. I've always loved to make curio shelves. I'm like, I don't know how to do interior design, but what is it called, my brother Daryl, when you just place things, you know? It's like, that's an art of its own. And he's an artist, a brilliant artist. So I get the placing. And you want to have that be done with focus and positive intent and significance. To use the objects from your previous activities and exercises. So earlier in the book it had you create some things apparently. Super excited to check that out. I'm a book jumper. I don't really usually start at the beginning. I get it for a purpose. I dive in and I like find out what I need and then peruse around. Last 4 or 5 books I've gotten have taken my breath away. They're like full reads. Start to finish. Holy potatoes. So the things that we made before in the book are best for the indoor shrine, such as they made a looks like they made like a little thing out of clay, and then it tells you to put that in the north, or the element for earth, and so it tells you how to set up the elements in your shrine. And then it says, once you are happy with the way your shrine looks, light your candle and call your fairy ally to you to help with the dedication. With the incense burning, take your water and using your fingers, sprinkle it lightly 3 times over your shrine. So here's my Great Columbia River water. I would take my fingers, dip it in, and sprinkle it lightly 3 times over my shrine when I'm dedicating this, okay? And so I think it's cool too that there's living things in here, because this water is still living, and I took a plant, just like a piece of algae, and you know, maybe the snails came off of that. Or I could take the rainwater and make it more symbolic, because rain coming down on this house, you know. So back and forth 3 times, and with the natural water, using your fingers, sprinkle it lightly 3 times over your shrine. Words or a song of dedication or even a dance may come to you as you do this. I'm probably going to write something, but if I don't, I might just find a song I love and this feels so dear and magical to me. I was listening to the, I love searching soundtracks on YouTube. I was listening to the Dark Crystal soundtrack, which is the sound of my childhood, which is the sound, because I used to rewatch it over and over and over, which, funny story, I still have no idea what it means. I don't get it. So I've been trying to rewatch it as an adult, because I'm like, hey, those are fairies, as I'm getting into all this other stuff. Because it is quite a complicated movie, and especially when I was watching it between the ages of 2 years old and 5 or 6 years old. That's the main time I watched it, like, on repeat, as I was, like, coloring, you know. It just got ingrained into my head, and that was the time I was, like, solely connecting with nature, and I remember even being 3 years old. Not everyone can do that, and not everyone is in tune with that, you know. So I think that that's one of the interesting things about me. It was also the time around then when I was 3 or 4, when I was gifted clairvoyance, clairaudience with certain, first it was just nature, and then now it's become other things as well, as you guys know, like Eleanor. It's back up on her shelf. Okay, so, back into the book. If at this stage, you, because you've sprinkled the water and and now you ask your ally for inspiration. You're dedicating it with a song, a dance, or words. And then you're dedicating your shrine to your fairy craft. If at this stage you feel drawn to make any promises, and it talks more about promises, only make them if you know for sure 1,000% you can keep them. Because the fairy get insulted super easy. They can, like, have their feelings hurt. They will do mischievous things. They might leave you altogether. So just make sure if you promise something monthly or weekly or daily or whatever, that you stick to it. But now would be a good time to at least make a small promise. Like, every single time I think of something to do for you, it doesn't have to be weekly. This could be once a year. But why would you only work with them once a year, is my question. Because the things that show up after you start working with them, white peacocks, are flippin' amazing. So yes. Make a little kind of, I would make a promise, but don't do it if you can't make a promise. Like, if you can't keep the promise, never lie to the Fae, you guys. Not a good idea. Okay, so if your shrine is outdoors, this is a good time to make a hearty offering of wine or mead. I make my own mead for my Fae offerings. Pretty wicked. Once you have completed all of this work, sit quietly in contemplation with your shrine and for some time before blowing out your candle and thanking your allies. So we're at 16 minutes. I feel like that's a good point to stop. I can't get through this, even with just highlighted bits. I can't get through this and talk about how I feel, which is great. I guess it makes for more content, but I'm going to break this up a bit. So next we're going to be talking about offerings. And there's so much to talk about. I'll just give you a little tiny glimpse of what we've got in here. So come back. Me, Jen the Taxidermy Witch.